So hi everyone, thank you for joining this session on how to harness your creativity, your sexual energy for greater creativity. And I should probably caveat that by saying, it's not just for creativity, it's for just generally a juicier life, to have more access to that energy. And yeah, by creativity, I don't just mean the arts. So I mean, a lot of people, when they think of creativity, it's about, you know, creating a beautiful painting or a beautiful piece of music. And that can be a great channel for your energy. And if it already is something that you're doing, then that's amazing. But what I mean by creativity, it's wherever you're channeling your energy into right now. And that can be, that is whatever job that you're in right now, or whatever it is that you want to do in the future. And then if we introduce the concept of sexual energy, I love to refer to it, and some of you might have heard this it described in this way before, but I love to think of it as life force energy, because it's literally the energy that is used for both men and women use it for creating life. Sometimes they do use that energy, and sometimes it's not used for creating life. So what do we do with it when it's not being used to create babies? And obviously scientists have shown that energy cannot be destroyed. It can be transferred, it can be transmuted, but it can't just be destroyed. So how do we really refine that energy into a kind of pure, potent energy source? How do we purify it? And again, I really think that words are important. So I want to say that when I say purify energy, I don't mean, make it, not in a kind of virginous way, not in a to get rid of what it actually is, but I mean to free it of shadow and how to really make it into a potent energy source. So we'll go into that soon. So I just want to start off with a very short meditation to get you into the zone. The first part of it will be the short meditation, and then we'll go into the emotional body, and then we'll go into the physical practices that we can do in order to harness our sexual energy for greater creativity. So the purpose of this short meditation is twofold. The first part of it is a quick 1-minute breath of fire. It's basically to get you into the awareness of that second chakra. So this is where, so the kind of spoiler alert, this is where both our personal power, our sexuality, and our creativity, so they all come from the same place. So doing a very quick breath of fire will really help you to just put awareness of where we're going to be kind of speaking from, or where all of this is coming from. And the second part is some left nostril breathing that we're going to do for just 3 minutes. And that's going to get you out of fight or flight and into your parasympathetic nervous system. So I do these every day, and I think it really helps with the practice. So we're going to start that now. So we're going to do a 1-minute breath of fire. I'll set the timer. And what you really want to be doing during this breath of fire is focusing on your nostrils rather than pumping the navel. This will help you to give an even inhale and exhale out of your nose. So we don't want to just be pumping the navel without an aim. We just want to kind of be doing, so it should look like this. And I just want to put the camera here so you can see. It shouldn't be too aggressive, so we're just going to do that for 1 minute. And eyes closed, and just focus on an even inhale and exhale out of the nose. Inhale through the nose, hold for a moment, and then exhale. And then we're going to go straight into left nostril breathing. So that's when you just hold off the right nostril with your right hand, and then you breathe through the nose. Long, deep breathing through the left nostril. So let's go. Eyes closed. So you're just closing off your right nostril and breathing long and deep through the left nostril. See someone you just joined, so we're doing some left nostril breathing through the left nostril. You just block off your right nostril and you do long deep breathing. Just got a minute left. And then you want to breathe, let go, breathe through both nostrils. Take a deep breath and exhale. So yeah, like I said, those are two great breathing techniques for you to do maybe before you have a project or when you really want to get into that creative zone, because it gets you into the seat of that second chakra, which is where all of this good stuff is happening. Just notice if anything new came up during that meditation, any information, anything that came up. It's all information. And I just want you to focus on this point as you're listening to the points that I'm going to make. It's just a really good practice to have an awareness of what's happening just at that below the navel point. And to be able to practice that throughout your day as well. It's a really good hack to see what's happening, whether you're holding any tension there, but we'll go into the physical practices a little bit later. So we're gonna get into the juice now. So how do we actually harness our sexual energy for creativity? So the first place that we usually start, or the place that I usually start, it's not always the prettiest. And I think a lot of people think that if you are having sex, if you're able to talk about sex, then you don't have any sexual blocks. But I think that if you're here, you probably think there's something more to that, or you know, there's this school of thought where if you don't have the obvious traumas, then there's nothing else there. But I think sexual shame can be a little bit more subtle. So I'm going to give you a few talking points for you to dive into, because this isn't a sort of workshop. I won't be able to like detail these points too much, but I'd love to share some prompts for you to explore. Let me just share my screen. How do I do this? Okay, cool. Okay, so my advice is that you basically take 10 minutes of free journaling for each question. And you take every one of these questions and you just go really deep. So whatever it is that comes up for you, I found that these questions are super, super important, and they really bring things up. Okay, so we'll just deep dive into these questions. I'll just explain a little bit about each one. So you've got, the first one is, what part of your sexuality seems the most mysterious to you? And what that really is doing is just looking into the places where you might have shame about certain desires that you might have, or any parts of your sexuality that you haven't really explored yet. Next is, what about sex distresses you? If nothing immediately, what has distressed you in the past? And the really important part of this question is seeing how it made you feel in the moment and how you feel about it looking back, because that will also help you to see how you've sort of, I don't want to say justified it, but basically put how you've introduced your rational mind into an emotional situation. And I will caveat this question by saying that if there are deeper traumas there, then that probably takes a little bit more of that will probably need a little bit more of a detailed approach. And it might need someone to help you through that process too. If you want some extra resources on that, or if you want me to help you to come up with more specific journaling prompts, I'm happy to do that. Just reach out to me. The third question is, what change would you like to make in your sexual emotions or feelings? And again, if nothing comes up straight away, just keep with it and keep journaling and keep writing. Just it's an amazing exercise to see what's there. Another one that I love is, what was the first conversation you had about your sexuality, and what would you change about this conversation, and who was it with? Next is, if you were to have a first conversation with your child about their sexuality, how would this go? And you then compare that to the question that the conversation that you've already had with your caretakers. Then another one which always brings up a lot is, growing up, what relationship did your caretakers have to their sexuality, sexual expression, and sexual energy? This can be a really, really juicy one to explore, and will also help you to draw some links as well that might unlock some information. I also have a bonus question for both men and women, male and female bodied people who are exploring this work but may not have gone into this realm, is to understand, what was your first experience of menstruation, getting your period, or encountering a period? And I love to include this question. I really, really encourage you to explore it. It's because you know, when a female body is preparing for menstruation, it's literally bringing up all of that energy that she's using for creation, and it's really a part of the creative process, right? It's all part of the same thing. And if there is any shame rooted in that, or if there is any elements where you felt like you didn't really complete that integration process, or if, you know, that's really, really a good one to explore. And for men as well, because men will also have feminine energy within them. We all have both, right? We all have masculine and feminine energy within us. And so for the feminine that's in the masculine bodied person, it's really important to see whether there is that, you're looking for that, like that feeling where there's something that you might not want to talk about. That is where the healing and the juiciness is, in my opinion. So I'd really, really love to invite you to explore whether there is something there for you. And yeah, I'm happy to share those journaling prompts if you didn't get them down. I've really found that those points are a major part of the delayering process. I love to call this process like a unpacking, or a sexual de-armoring, or a delayering. That's so important in order to get to the juiciness of actually being able to kind of channel your sexual energy. Because if you think about it, if you think about this chakra as like a, you know, it's a ball, but it has these, I don't want to say like lesions on it, but it does have these kind of impurities on it. And it's really important that we shake those things off. And the way that we do that is by bringing awareness to any shame, fear, sadness, guilt that was imprinted on us. And for me, journaling, free journaling, literally like not really having a plan of what you're going to write, accesses that part of your subconscious brain that might have pushed certain elements of this down. And yeah, it's really important to do this subconscious work in order to get to the later stages. And as we start to do this subconscious work, it's really magic what starts to happen. So we start to unlock layers of our, you know, we start to unlock this, but then you'll realize that you have more energy for your creative pursuits. So for some people, it might just be as simple as like, oh, I'm going to channel my sexual energy into this project. And they literally will use the energy that's there into that project. But for some people, it can be a little bit more subtle. So as you start to clear that energy, you start to realize that you have more in that same place to create whatever it is that you want to create, if that makes sense. So it might be in a little bit more of a subtle way. So we will now start talking about the more kind of physical practices that you can do in order to, you know, I love this kind of like ball analogy of this being the chakra, and you have these extra things around it that are not really you, right? And you want to get to the center of that, which is where, like, you know, your true sexual expression is, and it's your true expression of creativity too. So I've kind of spoken about the more kind of emotional body, of how we delayer and de-armor that. Now we will talk a little bit more about the physical practices that we can do in order to delayer this part. So there are literally like, there are so many ways. There's probably literally hundreds of ways to work the physical body in order to harness your sexual energy. I'm going to talk about a few because we only have a few more minutes left, and hopefully it will give you a little bit of inspiration to explore some of these methods further. So the first method, and we explored that a little bit at the start, is using breath work as a tool to hone into the second chakra. So I really love Breath of Fire because it literally has it's a cleansing breath according to Kundalini Yoga. It has a cleansing effect on the second chakra, but you want to focus on breathing through the nose, and then the pumping kind of happens usually, normally, not usually. And just generally, my favorite type of breath work is the more Kundalini style of breath work. If you want to look into it, I can also recommend a few poses that work on channeling your sexual energy. And there's just a lot in Kundalini yoga breath work that can bring things up to the surface and literally clear them out. We also kind of hold a lot of tension in that place, in that area of our body. So even just a simple act of becoming more aware of what's being held there. Like, am I, when I get into a nervous situation at work, or when I'm in the grocery store, like, am I holding on to the energy that's in that just below the navel point? Like, am I holding it in? And oftentimes we really are, and loosening it up and consciously breathing into that area will do you so much good. So those, in the breath work elm, I would definitely look at Kundalini yoga breath work practices, one of which is the breath of fire. You can also look at holotropic breath work, where you bring awareness to that just below the navel point, and then just generally loosening up stuck energy by breathing throughout the day. I just want to make sure I don't lose anything. The other thing that I would say about breath work is that, you want to make sure when you're doing any of this work that you're taking exceptional care of yourself, even more than usual. And I say that because working with sexual energy, or anything to do with sexual energy, it can bring up a lot for everyone. It can be quite a sensitive place, especially if you've pushed down certain memories. But there's a fruit at the end of it, right? Like, there's a real, like, that this is the same place that your personal power is sitting. So that's on the other side of that. So for me, it's really the best work that you can be doing is clearing out this, whatever is there, that it's not you. But yeah, I would definitely say when things come up, you need to be exceptionally kind with yourself, and just be aware that breath work in particular can release a lot of stuck energy. And it can, at least for me, and I think for people with sensitive energy bodies, when it's bringing things up, you can just be it can have a kind of detoxing effect. So yeah, just be very kind and patient with yourself. No, it's not going to happen straight away. Things can come off in layers. But yeah, breath work can be a very, very, very powerful tool, a powerful physical tool. The second point that I would make, and I would probably do this point after you've done I'd probably focus on this point more when you've done the bulk of your, I would say, sexual delayering or de-armoring work, when you've kind of gone to the dark side and you've brought that up to the surface, is by meditating on what it is that you want to create during a regular self-pleasure practice. And I say a self-pleasure practice because I think words are important, and I don't like to use the word masturbation, because I've learned recently that it comes from a Greek, I think it's a Roman word, it's masturbor, and it literally means to use your hand in confusion. It's a hand thrown into confusion. That was it. And I just think words are important. So I like to say, have a regular self-pleasure practice and try to use it as a way to explore what it is that's in your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind is telling you what you want to create. And this can be a really, really powerful tool for harnessing your creativity. It's literally during a self-pleasure practice when you bring all of that stuff that's in your subconscious to the surface and use pleasure as the vehicle to bring it out into the world. The third way, so 1 and 2, we've got breath work, we've got self-pleasure, so I'm just aware of time. The third way is another kind of clearing way. So I just want to introduce the idea that because we know that sexual energy can be transferred now, we know that we can hold that energy in us and we can take it to different places. We also, I also really believe, and there's a lot of schools of thoughts that believe that sexual energy, when you transfer it between people, it's important that when you're, for example, not with a person anymore, that you clear the energy that you might be holding from a past partner. And there's a lot of different ways to do this too. There's cord cutting ceremonies. There are also different meditations. If you are still holding on to the sexual energy of a past partner, I would really, say that it's really important to clear that in order to access your own creativity. So yeah, those are the 3 points that I would say are the physical things that you want to get onto after you've done your own de-armoring process. And if you have any questions, I would invite anyone to, in the last few minutes, you can unmute, I think you can unmute yourself and I can answer any questions that you might have about something that I've said, or if you need any clarification. I hope some of this has been food for thought for you guys.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So what would be your view on, say, like a certain level of abstinence from sex in order to like kind of build up that energy to be transferred into different avenues?
Yeah, so there's different views on this. Some people, and I wanted to keep my presentation kind of broad, so it applies to people both in partnership and outside of partnership. I would look at the ways, the reasoning behind it, right? So for me, it's like, for me personally, I want to strengthen my auric field enough so that I'm not susceptible to as much outside energies. For example, when I have sex with someone, like I don't want to be so influenced by that, right? So, but there is definitely benefits in keeping that energy really strong, but you want to make sure that it's not coming from a place of fear that like, oh, like if I let someone else in, that will be of detriment to all of the energy that I've built up. Because when you're engaging in sex with someone else, it's like when you're having sex with someone, you also need to remember that there are lots of different practices that you can do so that you're not like releasing all of that energy into the world or to the other person, right? Like there are also practices that you can do that even when you are having sex with someone else, that you can keep that sexual energy within you too, and still use it as a source of your own creation. So yeah, that's what I would say. That is that clear?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Does anyone else have a question on that? Cool. If anyone has a question, you can reach out to me. I think I put a message in the group a few minutes before I joined, but and you can reach out to me on Telegram, or you can reach out to me on Instagram. I'm at young_LDN. And yeah, happy to connect with any of you and also to share some of the questions that I gave. They're honestly super, super useful, and they really have helped to unlock a lot of information for me. And getting information leads to healing. So yeah, happy to share those too. Okay, thank you. Shall we? I'm just going to wait for the next person to come forward so I can hand over.